Hi everyone. Our group met to discuss competency-based education. In our research, Angie, Courtney, and myself came away with these points. CBE is a learning model that prioritizes proficiency over seat time. Basically, it measures a student's progression of learning rather than how long it takes them to learn the subject matter. The major differences of CBE versus a traditional learning model are time, progression, delivery, pace, and assessment. Everyone learns at a different rate and in different styles. CBE aims to address this by letting students learn at their own pace and take assessments when they're ready to demonstrate their competency. In other words, show what they've learned. This is different than a traditional education where time is fixed. By the end of the semester, you know what you know, or you don't know what you didn't learn. Hopefully you got a passing grade. With the CBE course, time is flexible. The design of the course is intended to let you finish what you're aiming to learn, to really develop those competencies. You have to master the concepts before moving forward. Setting goals is an important component of CBE. Instructors use backwards design to create personalized content and curricula for each individual student, depending on what their goals are. Students can set their own pace to achieve their goals. Assessment is one of the biggest differentiators between CBE and traditional learning systems. CBE aims for student success. Personalized content is intended to facilitate mastery before moving on. Therefore, everyone should succeed. We like these concepts, so we went and dug a little deeper. And now we'll turn it over to Courtney to address some of the opportunities of competency-based education.
Competency-based education offers a variety of learner opportunities. CBE allows learners to work in their own way to achieve competency. Since it is personalized and flexible, it provides equal opportunity learning. This ensures students learn skills and knowledge needed within grade level and subject area, even if they learn in different ways and at a different pace, and the learning can take place outside of classroom walls. Since students must show mastery before moving on, students are held to the same standards regardless of race, ethnicity, background, and financial status. Students are more engaged because learning is taking place at their pace, and everyone has equal opportunity to learn and succeed. CBE offers more support for learners. Assessments help provide educators with more detailed information about a student's skills and academic progress, which aids them in creating a more direct learning environment for that student and helps educators target where assistance may be needed. Students are paired with mentors that use that information to support them through the process of gaining competencies. CBE allows students to gain more workplace-ready skills. CBE is based on mastering competencies so students and employers know that the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities have been obtained prior to graduation, rather than wondering how letter grades and course hours will transfer to workplace performance. CBE helps possibly reduce costs and time related to school. Since course credit is given based on mastering the material as opposed to time spent in class, students have the opportunity to finish courses in a shorter amount of time. Less time equals less money. CBE is flexible by nature. This allows people with busy lives to still achieve degrees. Technology provides students a way to stay connected and learn outside of the classroom. Portfolio and skills assessments can be used to give students credit for previously mastered skills based on their prior experience and knowledge. This can also help shorten the time needed towards degrees.
So how do these opportunities come about in real-life practice? Are there any colleges that you can point to that help us understand what CBE would look like?
Western Governors University was designed in 1995 by 19 U.S. governors to offer new educational opportunities for adults. The flexibility of WGU allows students control on when and where they learn. This helps provide a degree pathway for those whose schedule would otherwise preclude them from earning a degree through traditional outlets. WGU offers bachelor's and master's in a variety of information technology, business, and healthcare fields, along with teaching licensure programs. When students enroll at WGU, they are assigned a student mentor. The mentor is there to support students through their school career. The mentor also works with an enrollment counselor to look at each student's prior experience in schooling in order to determine their current competencies. From there, a personalized degree plan can be developed. WGU operates on a prove-it philosophy. Students demonstrate what they know through tests, papers, or other assignments. Students take assessments when they are ready. Students can also take advantage of past experiences and hard work to move quicker through programs. Moving quicker through programs can help students save money since students at WGU pay a flat rate for each 6-month term, no matter how many courses they take during that time. WGU is regionally accredited and accredited by the National Council for Accreditation of Teacher Education and the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education. It is also the recipient of a USDLA Best Practices in Digital Learning Award.
Seems like that's working out. Anywhere else?
The state of New Hampshire began work in 2004 to redesign their education system. New Hampshire decided that when it comes to student learning, it matters more that students are held accountable to high standards rather than focusing on if that learning took place at a certain time and place. New Hampshire was the first state to get rid of the Carnegie Unit, which was developed by the Carnegie Foundation in 1906 and is used to measure seat time. Instead of measuring the time students were in the classroom, the New Hampshire Board of Education established statewide competencies for math, English language arts, science, the arts, and work study practices. This opens the door for alternate pathways to a degree, including internships and community projects. New Hampshire used coaches familiar with CBE to help transition teachers. A new grading policy was established based on research that shows course performance is a better indicator of future success than standardized testing. A 2013 Alliance for Excellent Education case study report on 2 New Hampshire schools using competency-based education systems found a decrease in dropout rate, course failures, and reported incidents of behavior. The report also found an increase in student engagement and learning.
So if my institution wanted to move more towards a competency-based education system, what would we have to do to get there? Angie, can you break this down for us?
Once you have determined to implement a CBE course, some challenges need to be considered and overcome. These include training, time, behavior or perception, and technology or curricula. Even if a teacher is willing, doesn't mean they are able. Teaching in a CBE environment is much different than teaching in a traditional environment. For one, teachers must begin to assume a facilitator role rather than a teaching role. This type of environment means that the students work at their own pace in order to reach mastery level of the course. So it is now the facilitator's job to monitor their progress and help ensure they stay on track. Plus, the type of material being taught and the way it is taught is different than a traditional classroom, so teachers need to understand that and know how to change the way that they develop their courses. Secondly, the time factor involved in creating and administering a CBE course can sometimes be a daunting task. Oftentimes, only a portion of a course is converted to a CBE environment, thus leaving the rest of the course as is, meaning the teacher has double duty to continue maintaining a traditional course while at the same time learning and implementing a new CBE course. And the materials for a new CBE course must be developed, so there is often a large amount of time required in order to accomplish this task as well. Without having support from others, teachers will often decide it isn't worth it before they've even begun to try the new process. Third, knowing that a new program is being developed is one thing, but having buy-in on that program from everyone involved is quite another. Teachers often think of a CBE program as being too hard and too much effort to implement and maintain. Although it is probable that a lot of time and energy will be required at the very beginning, once a CBE course gets involved and is underway, the time required should balance out. Also, since both students and teachers are used to receiving feedback the traditional way through a grading system, getting used to a new way of receiving and processing feedback is sometimes a hard concept to process. I can tell you from experience that I have had a very difficult time getting used to my son's new grading method. He receives an M for mastery or a P for proficiency or NY for not yet, instead of the traditional A, B, C, D, or F. I have really struggled with this method, but it is starting to make a bit more sense to me, and even from his standpoint, which is the student, understanding this new system and comprehending its meaning has been a challenge even for him, which is in the ninth grade. He has had to learn to be driven, self-motivated, and self-taught. He has had to learn responsibility very quickly and how to budget his time in order to accommodate time for everything that he is expected to get done. The process in itself is definitely a learning feat. Lastly, with any new course, there is always the question of what to use in order to teach the materials and to be the most effective. Should I use a book, and if so, what book? Should I use free materials that I'll pull off online? Should I make up my own material? Is there a computer program that would provide me with the materials I need to teach? Implementing a CBE program is no different. Since the students in a CBE environment are self-driven, the curriculum must be flexible and easily adaptable to the needs of each student. Students learn at different paces, so the material needs to provide them the opportunity to work slowly, review their work, practice again, test again, or steamroll right through it if they know the material already. Technology has provided the means to do this much simpler since programs can be written to allow this branching off technique. Printed materials may provide the same individual self-paced learning, but either way, determining which materials to use and then to develop those materials can certainly be a challenge.
I'm optimistic those things can happen. What else do we need to look at?
Before trying to implement a CBE-driven course, 3 factors need to be considered. Is everyone on board? Where should this be implemented? And how will you know if the program is working? Creating a new program of any kind, especially one that changes the learning environment and process so drastically, requires that you have buy-in from the faculty, administration, upper management, and even the students. The faculty will have a major role to play in a CBE program, and it will require they convert from being teachers to be facilitators. That is often a hard concept for many to accept. Standard teaching requires that teachers have a single lesson plan, they have a lecture for the entire class, demonstrate the new principles, and then assign work for the students to complete in order to test their comprehension of the material. But in a CBE environment, teachers become facilitators. In this role, they will provide the overall goal and objectives of the course, then step back and monitor the students as they progress through the work in order to ensure they are on track for accomplishing the ultimate goals. This monitoring is accomplished by conducting assessments and tracking a student's progress, which is often done by administrative personnel. They not only need to track a student's progress for the current course, but for the entire time they are in the school system, in order to ensure the student stays on track throughout their education. And as with any new system, there is often a financial factor to consider, so having the support of upper management is critical, not to mention needing their support for developing a new program. If management doesn't support the endeavor, then a CBE program is likely to fail since there are so many factors involved in implementing such a feat. And finally, students need to understand how a CBE learning environment is different from a standard learning environment, and they need to be willing to change their way of thinking and of working. The second issue to consider before implementing a CBE program is where to implement it. If a student is exposed to this type of learning from the time they start in elementary school, then they will be accustomed to the type of learning when they get into higher grades and even college. But if a CBE program is implemented at the college level and the students coming into that program have not been used to this type of learning, they will likely face issues trying to acclimate themselves. Also, this type of program is often seen more in the public school system rather than private systems, so there is no consistency to the types of students being released into the job market, which makes it hard for employers to accept and grow accustomed to. Lastly, one of the biggest factors to determining whether or not a CBE program will work is whether or not the students can complete the competencies for the course and thus accomplish the learning objectives. This testing is completed through assessments. Assessments test a student's knowledge, skills, and abilities by determining if they have met the objectives and can, in turn, complete the competencies of the course. Since the main core of a CBE program is to provide students the ability to learn how they want and at their own pace, assessing their competencies can be a challenge. Competencies need to be designed to fit the individual student, but at the same time provide a framework for teachers in which to base their results on. An assessment must also take into consideration the varying levels of learning. Some learn faster than others. It is often said that the boss doesn't have a clue what is really going on the front line, so how can he or she make decisions about the production process? The same can be said for determining who should develop assessments to test the student's comprehension of a subject. There are state-created assessments for CBE learning environments and commercially created assessments, but it is often argued that the facilitator or teacher knows the students best and can therefore create more specific assessments to help the student reach mastery of the competency. A commercial product can test the overall objectives, but to accurately test the student's mastery of a subject, the facilitator needs to be the one creating and administering the assessment, since he or she would know their students best. Some have even argued that the students themselves should be involved in designing the assessment process and how and when they should be assessed.
When CBE is used properly, it can implement a great style of education for non-traditional learners. Institutions are better able to cater to the needs of non-traditional students, such as adult learners. There's more flexibility for where you study and the pace that you study, and it should be a little bit cheaper, hopefully. Students are more marketable as mastered competencies are highly relevant to employers. And faculty turns into a coach or an advisor, which is a great resource to have in your learning endeavors. CBE works best for adults who can clearly define their learning goals. There are many opportunities to implement CBE in the coming years. 38% of all post-secondary students entering a fall semester are over 25 years of age. That percentage is expected to climb to 42% by 2020. CBE requires the technical infrastructure of an LMS to facilitate delivery to students whenever they need it. There are many changes that need to take place to change from traditional settings to competency-based education, from the administrative, the student, and the instructor levels. There is growing evidence that this style of education is highly effective. Hopefully, we'll see some of these changes take place as we work as educators in our lifetime. Thank you for checking out our presentation. We hope you had a good time and you learned a lot.